Derek Brandeo says it's a go on the Real Kyper and Bourne show alongside David Sisboom-Ba. We are Nick Kypreos. We are Justin Bourne. We are Sammy McKee. Somewhat of a Leaf edition of our hour.
Yeah.
What are you shrugging?
What do you want to talk about?
You got any Leaf things to say?
Are we out of Leaf things to say?
I think what I will say is yesterday, I don't think anybody realized how hurt Kyper was playing. And
What a showing that was.
And the mics go off at 5:54, and he goes, "Holy, I was fighting, boys. I was fighting."
I grinded. I told you, I grinded, and Can you hear it in my voice?
Still grinding?
You sound at 90% for
I will
vocal
say though,
constitution.
the sun's out, it's 20 degrees. We're into the there's no news going on. The fact that Kyper, still in here grinding 2 hours a day shows how much he loves us, Barney.
Is that what it is? Is it us or the paycheck, do you think?
I think probably I think you get the paycheck either way.
Good point.
I also had a headache.
Oh,
Nice
here
work.
we go. Here we go.
What?
Here we
What?
go.
You made it. You survived.
I didn't mention it, though.
That's good.
Good.
You're better
Didn't
today,
mention
though.
it. I am. So wherever you are watching and listening, Sportsnet 590, Sportsnet 360, Sportsnet Plus, thanks for coming along. Also, if you get a chance, give us a download when you can't catch us live.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so kind of quiet on the coaching front.
Is it?
I'm sure behind the scenes things are happening here. Not much to talk about per se, up to date on anything.
I got a thing. Okay, that's
But-
good. Go ahead.
Okay, let's go to your thing and then we'll do my thing.
Okay, my thing is just Todd McClellan. Are we being too dismissive of the idea of Todd McClellan as the head coach of the Leafs?
He's when you say that, I think people are under the impression that it's Craig Berube or Todd McClellan.
Yeah, but
So
it
it's-
feels to
they're-
me like it's Craig Berube, doesn't it?
Yes.
Like everyone's saying, like
Yes.
it's this seems.
But
most
Craig's
likely.
got a Stanley Cup
Yeah.
with St. Louis, and the other guy doesn't have one.
Did he
So,
win one as an
does that not-
assistant with the Red Wings
Yes.
in 08?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that count? It's not the same as being a head coach for a team, I suppose.
And who was he working with? Who was he working for?
Babs.
Oh,
That's right.
was that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Babs.
So,
You got a Babs disciple working his
you
way.
got,
Yeah.
You okay with that?
Well, here's what I am okay with. Babs is proven right on everything. So, coaching wise, he was vindicated.
It just
in Toronto.
wasn't.
There's pain coming.
Just nothing likable about the man. That's the problem.
It
His
was
problem was he was
ego.
not saying that coaches need to be liked,
No,
but this
have
guy
some
found every
humility.
reason to make people think that he's one of the worst people they deal with.
Yeah, you can be a tough coach that people dread being, when you're coaching them. But at the heart of it, you have to be a good person, have a good heart at the end of it. But
But
maybe
you know what's
he
funny
doesn't.
is that was a core tenet of Babs' beliefs. Like
Good
he
man.
knew that. He knew to be
Good family
a good man.
man.
And I will say he always treated me wonderfully.
good.
I liked the man
He didn't
personally.
want anything out of you, though.
Well, that's fair. There's nothing I
He
could
didn't
give him.
need you. He didn't want you. He didn't. Right?
Yeah. But he treated me nice. That's all I'm
There you
saying.
go.
But anyway, this is not a Babs referendum. McClellan, though,
Yes.
so Craig Berube has a interview in Winnipeg. I came across somewhere. He's got an opportunity there, and I don't know. I am not as sure as other people seem to be. It'll be Berube over McClellan.
Are you? I mean,
I think with Todd, though, there is an underwhelming feeling about his past experiences in Edmonton,
Yeah.
San Jose,
Yeah.
and LA,
Yeah,
right? And the fact that he was always considered one of the highest paid coaches in the league for a guy that's never got it done as a head coach, it's a big commitment teams made.
Mm-hmm.
$5 million guy. Is
And
he
he-
still a $5 million guy?
No, definitely not. But also,
But if you're coming to Toronto, you're thinking $5 million. Are you
well,
not?
see, to me, the opportunity to coach in Toronto is worth something, and I would rather coach in Toronto.
Okay,
for,
this is going to be the hey. You can do endorsements. There's other opportunities
Somebody call the
here.
Canadian Tire guy.
Not other money, but like you become a name that no one will ever forget.
But for a team that has a gazillion dollars, you're going to trade that in for a lesser salary, or are you going to just try to have it the whole cake and eat it too?
Well, would like to try to have the whole cake, but if you're the Leafs and you don't feel like he's worth X, they paid Sheldon Keefe a lot less than a lot of other coaches because they weren't as in demand. And I don't think Todd McClellan is as in demand as Craig Berube.
But Sheldon was also a rookie guy coming in and
the one thing that
proven
scares
the thing.
me with McClellan is it's not like he hasn't had horses, right? So those San Jose Sharks teams he had tons of talent.
Very good.
Oilers had lots of young talent, which that's hard to harness at times. And you would think that's part of coming to Toronto is figuring out what to do with lots of good players.
LA, what was the issue there?
To me, I was thinking they don't have enough of that. But then I was going back through his history and I was like, oh yeah, he has had teams with talent, so can't blame it on just a lack of talent. So yeah, I still think it's somewhat underwhelming. But I don't think that he's miles worse than Craig Berube as a coach.
A message I've been getting a little bit, on Instagram, Twitter, where people will message me about this kind of stuff is like, is there somebody else, like an outside the box hire, like the next, is it just have to be?
It can't be a new
It can't
hire.
be another Sheldon Keefe.
It can't.
It has to be.
Like,
It has to be like a hockey man through and through.
yes.
Classic.
It has to be someone who's coached a team, and that's super limiting. I understand.
And it has to be a guy that can, I don't know any other way to say it, but who can be a hard ass on Nylander and Matthews.
Yeah.
And who knows if Marner or Tavares are there or Morgan. But
because if you're the new guy, you come in, those guys have power over you.
the number one thing that the new guy has to come in is to squeeze the top end guys and make them nervous enough that everybody underneath them are super nervous. If they're not relaxing, then I can't relax.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's
why Berube is.
That's why Berube's probably number one because we know that he can do that.
Yeah.
Like we should find
look at
we should find that clip of him as early as this year where he talked about the Blues without passion.
I don't remember.
You remember that one?
No.
Well, yeah, it was going around on Twitter yesterday, but he's just like basically saying that they didn't play with any passion. They didn't play hard. Like he's a very, very honest man.
He has the passion.
He probably does have the passion. Yeah, I would say. I think if you're the only really free agent coach that's going to come in and, not be have the players have more power is probably Berube.
Yeah.
Because if you look at
it should be him.
Is McClellan going to come in and be like, tell him he's going to have more?
He still feels lucky to be here.
I agree.
Right? That's how that would feel.
So now the more that we talk this out, it really does feel like Berube or bust. If you're just going to go McClellan, why
are they letting him go have an interview in Winnipeg? Why don't they just pay the
well,
man
that's interesting.
his money?
That's really interesting.
Right.
The other one too is New Jersey. Now, if you were to ask Craig Berube what would his number one wish be, it would be to have coached the Philadelphia Flyers next year. That's number one.
Think so?
I know so.
Okay.
That's not available. Right? Tortorella staying.
Well, yeah. Okay.
And he wants to coach as early as next year.
But he also wants to maybe move into management.
But it's not happening next year.
Enough. Okay.
It's not happening soon enough. So does Craig want to wait to see where Tortorella goes for another year and get his dream job of being the Philadelphia Flyer head coach? Or does he take the next best option? Mm-hmm. So,
well, I mean, I don't know if I want that either.
The guy who doesn't want to be here?
Well, no, it's not that he doesn't want to be here, but there's somewhere else that he'd rather be.
Well, come on. It's like being drafted as an 18-year-old and it's not your favorite team. You're still happy to go somewhere. Don't. It's not like Sammy's not going to try when he becomes your head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's not the Flyers.
I know, but I mean, hearing that, it's a little jarring. No? Anyways.
That's good. Maybe he won't be so reverential about the whole thing.
The only thing I wonder now is if, the New Jersey job, because, he lives 50 minutes from.
Does he live in Philly in the offseason?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Would he rather just be close to home and take the New Jersey job?
When I saw that he was going for this Winnipeg interview, I was like, the man is it's not like the Leafs can make him do anything. the Winnipeg, he's from Manitoba, if I'm not, no, Alberta, right? That's originally Alberta. But like it makes sense for him to go see what the offers sound like and look like. You don't get that opportunity to be a UFA in demand very often. So yeah, I'm sure he'll hear the interview, hear the offers.
That's not the only option too. There's Seattle out there.
Yeah.
They need a coach.
That exists.
So what is happening here? Are they all going around and, I don't know, making everybody feel nervous that when the music stops, some teams are going to be left without a chair?
I guess.
So when one guy gets hired here for one of the vacancies, is that going to make everybody move really quickly? Like, is there going to be a domino effect like the trade deadline when everyone's like waiting and then the first trade happens and then everyone starts doing a big trade?
It's funny, because a head coach has retired, he's not going to work anymore, that being bonus from Winnipeg, and a lot of teams are like the Leafs and they don't want to give a new guy an opportunity because, guys tend to have to learn on the job. And frankly, you watch Knoblauch give McDavid and Draisaitl 30 minutes ice time last game. Like, yeah, there's a learning curve. I remember Sheldon doing that with Marner and Matthews for a while. So, there's just not that many guys that you would consider, Keefe now is available, but Berube, McClellan, like who else is there? We do have the Berube clip if you want to hear Berube talking about the passion.
Craig.
Well,
let's
thanks,
hear
Derek.
Sam's future coach.
I don't know.
Torpo had an outstanding game. Tucker, Bucci had an outstanding game. Benner, we have some guys that are, it's not, we have a lot of guys compete. Like there's a handful of guys really competing and doing the job. But again, our best players aren't even close.
Aren't even close. That's news here, boys. That's news. We're doing a half-hour aren't even close show.
And let's lead with a Kyper's Clipper from Craig Berube calling out his best players.
The
not even being
podcast title
close.
is called "We're Not Even Close."
Yeah. It's a
So
ordeal.
That's what people are, I think, interested in.
Mm-hmm. But maybe if he does it enough, it won't be such a big story.
yeah, I think the lack of it from because did Babs do that kind of stuff in the media? Like I have a hard time remembering him.
You got to remember, Babs was still in that kind of development stage with a lot of these guys. It wasn't easy when they're like 23 to call them out, 24 still.
20 when he was here, right?
But Keefe,
20.
Keefe did it notably a few times and then
Backtrack.
Remember that it was a big story here when Randy Carlyle said that James Reimer was just okay. Remember, just okay? It became like harsh criticism of the goaltender. It's like, God, tough market.
So, but
That's us, I guess.
how much do you think, like we just played that clip there, we talk about how big a news that would be. Like if you're Craig Berube, and I guess that's kind of would be similar in Winnipeg, maybe not to the same obvious as Toronto, but like, am I going to be able to coach as hard as I want to through the media? Like, is everything I say going to be a referendum? Like, do you think
And the
Craig's
answer is yes.
You think he's comfortable with that?
I don't think he's
It's
afraid of
something
much.
that he's definitely has to
Weigh at,
for sure.
Can't
Okay.
be afraid.
And it is. You'll never. That's the beast of this market, is that you'll have to put up with crappy shows like ours.
Yeah, and you can put extra on your players' plates by being uncareful with your words. Uncareful? Doesn't sound right. But, like if you say something a little casual and all of a sudden we make a big deal out of it and everyone else picks it up and whatever, the player's you're answering questions, like it's different how to manage how you talk in the media.
The other thing, too, is when Sheldon did speak and then sometimes later you get a different vibe from him, you weren't sure if it was just Sheldon making that decision or Kyle ended up going back to him and saying, you got to fix that. That was no good. And you got to go back and try to change that tone and all of that. And you're like, and then he always spoke of we and we'll decide collectively. And it was like, I don't know how much.
There's a lot of we there.
Yeah, how much power you really had over your comments.
Yeah.
Are those your comments, yours alone? When you backpedaled, was that because you were told to backpedal?
I mean, the show that we've referenced probably more than any was that the 24/7 or whatever they did that Amazon series. And you remember when Matthews alluded to the fact that they weren't opening it up, that they were playing too tight, and he said something in the media. Keefe was just apoplectic about it. He's like, I'm getting killed in the narrative. I'm getting killed in the narrative. I remember him going crazy and then having to have a meeting with Matthews about it and all this stuff. So the narratives matter here. And one little thing you say, and it's our fault, I'll fully say it, but that's the market, baby. This is what we do. it gets twisted. That's got to be something that's scary for a coach, man.
I don't see.
I don't think he cares.
I don't see Craig Berube saying something and then a day or 2 days later walking anything back. Once it's out there, it's out there. And I would think that Craig would make that fairly clear to Brendan and Keith Pelly and Brad Treliving that, when I say something, unless it's ridiculously obvious that I need to go back, then I'm sticking with my words.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, I mean, if it isn't him, like Woodcroft, I guess, is the guy who's available.
Gallant.
Gallant hasn't come up much for a guy who interests me. I think he'd be good.
Yeah, I think
short term.
Yeah,
Gerard is one of those guys where it's like,
he goes.
I'm not wasting my time. I'm not wasting your time. Like, you're not good enough, and I'm going to bench you, or I'm going to cut your ice time, or you're in the stands.
Yeah.
You got a problem with that?
Is he a fallback to Berube then? By the way, we will eventually decide how we're going to say Berube on this show. Whether it's Berube or Berube.
I think it's Berube. But
Berube. I don't know. I only played. I've known the guy for like 30 years.
Well, if he gets a job, I promise we'll have a consensus way to pronounce it on the show.
Fair enough.
All right. Are we through the coaching section?
No.
Oh.
No. So how many teams need coaches right now? I said Seattle. I said Toronto.
Winnipeg, New Jersey, Toronto.
4.
Is that it?
Okay. Now you're Craig Berube. Let's assume that Craig's the top of the list now for everybody and for anybody. Yeah. Okay. If you were just to look down rosters, which team would give me the best chance to go win a Stanley Cup the quickest?
So Jersey's close, but I don't think they haven't done anything. They missed the playoffs last year. I know they missed Dougie Hamilton, but it's the Leafs.
So the Leafs are the most attractive out of any team, including Winnipeg.
I think Matthews and Nylander have a lot to do with that you have these sort of 100-point plus guys. Winnipeg has a lot of good players, but
I'm not sure I'd put the Leafs.
I'd go
there.
Devils probably.
Who put who?
Devils.
Devils are a fine pick because you get Dougie Hamilton back.
Seattle's
and you get a
not bad either. If they can go and spend, they need some stars though. They need to go
they're
UFA.
Pop out as a first-round loss team to me. They're not talking about you need stars. That's tough to come by.
And what are the Leafs?
Well, so far they have been. But at least you have the top end guys.
You've got Matthews and Nylander.
Yeah. Well, and whatever you still have Mitch Marner.
An underwheling. I don't
your
know.
watch talking to you.
It just keeps talking.
Get Syria, Mike.
You've got an underwhelming blue line.
Yeah.
And you've got no goalie that you can count on.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, you're not sure about Wool's injury or whatever, but I think the Leafs are a good team next year. I really think there's a lot of pieces there, and whatever.
I think it's a fork in the road.
It's big decisions. 12 UFAs.
Big decisions and decisions that you cannot make the same mistakes that you've seen in the last 5 or 7 years. You can't. The Leafs are at some point when you look at all the mistakes, and I don't want to crap all over Kyle Dubas here, but
you don't.
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't. But eventually it catches up to you, and you just wonder: is that the next couple of years? Or is it beyond that?
I think next year you're getting more from Matthew Nyes. I think, we have 35 points this year. He's better than that. Nick Robertson finally looks like he can shoot it in the net. Bobby McMahon finally found himself. Benoit's a nice third pair guy. I think you have this uprising, this second wave of players, and you're going to have a lot of money to spend. I think it's very attractive.
Yeah.
Go ahead and,
I think you are onto something though, Kipper, that you got to nail these trades. If you're talking about trading Mitch Marner, you're talking about trading Tavares, you're talking about, if you want to be as good as you've been in the past few years, you have to nail these trades. And I think any conversation that you're having with a head coach, it's kind of a complicated one because you don't exactly know what your team's going to look like at the start of the season, right? If they're having an interview with Berube right now, or Berube, I'm going Berube. I'm going Berube. If you're having the conversation with Berube right now, and you're interviewing him, and he's asking you back questions, what are they telling them about who's going to be on the team? I guess you're just telling them you're saying you have Matthews, you have Nylander, you have this, but it's kind of a weird team in flux that may be hard to sell to a coach. No,
you're not wrong that if you're Berube, it's a little bit like being like speed dating these interviews and being like, oh, this one's got a lot of red flags. This one's complicated. There's drama here.
They lack,
they
lack assets. Like, even if you trade Marner, maybe it's a first and a blue chip prospect.
Yeah,
that might not come around to help you in the next 2 years.
The cap space is there to do something with too. I get the point you're making is that the Leafs are not as attractive as maybe some of the other spots, but I think you're wrong.
Benoit was terrific as a third pair, but they got 5.5 third pair guys.
Yeah,
they don't have a one.
Yeah,
we're established with that.
No, for sure.
Right?
But Riley's still there, and they've been 100 and whatever point team every year with Riley as their one. McKee took a step this year for me.
They need two good guys in the back end.
Yes, for sure. Listen, I'm not saying they don't have needs, but I'm saying New Jersey had 81 points this year.
Yeah.
You know, you throw a goalie in there and you get 91? Like, they got work to do there.
Yeah.
No, you're right. And I think there's just two teams that are at very different points of where they're at.
You can see New Jersey being a 105-point team.
Absolutely.
It's not out of the question.
Listen, they should have had Markstrom there.
They got
Calgary screwed that up, eh?
Calgary did?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, what do you mean?
They botched the trade.
Too much.
Yeah.
Well, you heard, was it in New Jersey where their GM said that they don't want to be, basically held at gunpoint?
Yes.
When they know that a player wants to go there and they didn't feel like it was reasonable what the ask was, which good for them for not just panic trading and hanging on to Markstrom. But
yeah, exactly.
Seems like this summer he'll go.
All right. We're going to also have Dave Jackson on, former NHL referee, rules analyst for ESPN. And I don't know, are we talking about just another playoff where there's some questionable calls, or does this one seem to be a little bit...
Before we go to that, can I ask you something that we talked about with Bukala yesterday?
Oh, okay, yeah, sure.
Because, it's been a huge thing in Leafs Nation right now, is that Easton Cowan, where, I don't know if you saw any of the highlights of the game last night from the Oshawa Generals.
4 helpers?
Yeah, but did you see the game at all or see what happened? They were down. The Oshawa Generals were up 6-2 with 12 minutes left, and they lost 7-6 in double overtime. I can't imagine a more heartbreaking loss than that for the Jennies. But Easton Cowan is a super duper star in the OHL. He looks unbelievable. And I think what you were talking about yesterday with Bukala, this is just the next in a line of guys that, we're talking about how they're going to need contributions from people who come up, and you're talking about the McMahons of the world and the Robertsons of the world. I'm very interested to see next year what the conversation is around him if he has a good camp, because I think it's going to be a very interesting one.
He'll stick around for the first 10 games, and then you'll gauge him, and in all probability he'll probably stay. I just don't know.
Stay with Toronto?
Yeah, listen, he's good enough. I think he's
really
good enough. But there's a big difference between being good enough to stay and then being a difference maker when you need it come April.
Yeah.
And I'll just go back to Nyes. Nyes has made great progress. He's a good player.
Yep.
But not good enough this year to have been a difference maker.
For sure. So
and he's 220.
Yeah.
This guy's $175, $180.
Mm-hmm.
Big difference.
Absolutely. And the Robertson things there, too, where he was a superstar in junior. It comes in, it's tougher for him. It's taken a long time. But I want Leaf Nation to just, which they won't, and they won't listen to me, but just pump the brakes a little bit on all these things.
Just look at their history.
It's got 11 points in 3 games.
Brakes.
11 points in 3 games in the final.
They're not pumping brakes. They're just going to hit the gas and then drive it over a cliff.
Anyways, I just thought it was a great conversation with Bukala yesterday. It was relevant because of what the Knights did last night.
But go back in their history. Justin Pogge, wasn't he the next Felix Potvin?
Oh, yeah. But you know what? This is not a Leafs exclusive. Everyone, has this prospect fantasy thing going on.
Except everyone else has 1 or 2 reporters.
Yeah.
Toronto's got 1,000.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so just shout out to my Jennies fans. Can't imagine how bad that burns. 6-2. Sorry to those young men.
Catch Dale Hunter every once in a while just giving it to his bench, too.
Oh, yeah. What about him as a coach of Toronto?
But I think he like, you want to talk about holding London Knights accountable?
Yeah.
That's what that guy does.
Yeah.
Did he do it?
That program every 3 years, they're looking Memorial Cup every 3 years.
As good a program as exists.
And he played Ovi 12 minutes in his prime in a playoff game once.
But
Held them accountable.
Absolutely.
None of that lollygagging.
Absolutely.
so Dale's a good coach. I think he'd make
he
a
is.
great pro coach.
I get that message and I get that text on here so much about Dale Hunter as a coach of the Leafs. It's nonstop. So, anyways, thought I'd bring it up. So, what do you want to say about the
I
referee?
just wanted. I know we're going to have him on in 5 minutes, but just again, your thoughts watching every night. Is it a hotter button topic than
No.
previous years, or is it
No.
just the same?
Every
more
year
the
it's
same.
the same. Every year it's the same because every fan needs every call. Every game's so important. Every power play is so important. So every whistle is scrutinized. That's not icing. It wasn't offside. So these guys are just held to a higher standard.
I think having two Canadian teams playing in a second round series adds to the heat a ton.
Yeah.
Where it's like these games are so high stakes and there's so many eyes on them and these fans are just rabid and at each other's throats that when you have especially with Boston too, where the crybaby market, there's one bad call goes against them for the first time in their team's history, that they just blow up over it and their general manager whines to the media about refereeing. That adds to the fan as well.
Like, this is the big bad Bruins are usually on the other side of just don't talk about it.
They have gotten every call for 100 years. And the one time it goes against them,
I don't ever
it's a
recall
referendum.
the Boston Bruins crying like this.
Neither have I.
They're on the wrong side of it, and I think that's a bad sign for them.
So, and I think that's part of it. So you have these big markets where there's controversial calls in every playoff hockey game. There's these big markets, and there's Canadian teams, and there's tons of people talking about it. So I think that gets brought up. So interesting to get Dave's perspective on that.
For sure.
Did I get your views, guys, on whether or not they should speak to the media?
I don't think you have solicited our views on that.
We're going to get Dave Jackson's for sure.
Okay.
But your thoughts about
I
officials
think
making themselves
we had mentioned
available
yesterday that it's just going to be a reciting of the statement they put out. They're going to try to say as little as possible. It's such a subjective, job that I don't think guys are going to come out and say, I didn't see it. I don't know. I don't know that we're going to get more out of it, but if it makes people happy, maybe have them do it. I don't really care about it, to be honest.
I think it's stupid. I think if you have the refs come out and talk about it, you're just going to make people more mad because they're not going to come out and
They're
be
not going
like,
to like the explanation.
well, they're not like, what player? I mean, outside of some guys will be like, I was my fault. But or a coach, like outside of very rare opportunities, these guys are human. They're out there in the middle of the fight. They're not going to be like, yeah, it was all my fault. It was all my fault. You're never going to get the chunk of meat that you want. But anyways, talk to Dave about it.
I just think it would add to the chaos.
Which I like. I'm fine with. You'd have to give the refs a little bit more money, wouldn't you? Because
if you're the NHL, you're fine with it as someone in the media.
Yes.
You're just not fine with it if you ran the NHL officiating department.
Correct.
Or Gary Bettman, where it's another thing where I think it's
Don't
just
worry about them talking.
pouring gasoline on a fire.
Hey, here's a request for whoever coaches the Leafs next or the PR department. Can the assistant coaches say something someday? Could we talk to some of the most interesting, informed people who help run the team and steer the ship? Could we have got Guy Boucher to tell us about his power play and what's going on? Could I get Van Ryn and the D? Could we get some thoughts?
No. I think the assistants used to talk, didn't they?
They did.
Toronto media. I feel like that used to happen.
Pre-Lou, I think.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it did.
When?
No.
Pre-Lou.
Pre-Lou?
I think so.
I feel like it used to happen.
I think, but generally speaking, like there is no profile for assistant coaches in the NHL. There isn't. Like, think about
I
it.
mean, there's no profile.
I'm saying, when was the last assistant coach where you got to hear him and you got to get to know him?
Right.
When was the last one when you said, oh, he's an up-and-comer,
That's a
or
good
this guy's
assistant
going to be
coach.
a rock star, and
Spencer
they're not going to be
Carberry.
able to keep
You
him?
didn't get to say
How about
anything.
that assistant coach? They're not going to be able to keep him. Wait when the first job gets hired, and it's like, they're all kind of they've around the league. They put their thumbs on him, and I think it's
DJ
just
Smith, Spencer Carberry, a couple guys.
I
out
think
there,
it just
Jim
comes
Hiller.
down to one thing: the insecurity of a head coach.
Yes,
That's it.
I agree.
I don't need to hear from this guy. I don't need people to think he's smarter than me. He's better than me. Why isn't he the head coach? Don't get to know him.
Gatekeeping.
Right? No?
Yes,
Can you
you're
think
right.
of anything else?
No, I can't. Outside of the PR department doesn't want him to contradict something the coach said, then it creates a story, and so they'd rather just it's simpler to not have them say anything ever. That's what the answer is.
Let's hit a break.
Yep.
I wanted to ask you something else, but I forgot. I'm going to remember during the break.
Yeah, you'll remember for sure.
Okay, when we return, Dave Jackson, former NHL referee, also at the top of the hour, Luke Gazdic, who's done a terrific job on Sportsnet, Hockey Night in Canada, he'll join us. And then Tripp Tracy, Carolina Hurricane, Valley Sports Television, talking how Carolina right back in it with a big win at MSG. That and more when we return to Real Kyper and Bourne. Nick Kypreos, Justin Bourne, Sammy McKee. Let's welcome in Dave Jackson, former NHL referee. Shut it down when? 2018, 17? 18. All right, not bad. Now doing a terrific job as a rules analyst for ESPN. So, Jax, let me ask you just in terms of those last few years that you're an NHL referee and you make a controversial call in an NHL playoff series. How much were you aware of the noise around you and your call back then?
Oh, very little. I mean, well, I shouldn't say that. You know when you've made a call that's controversial and you beat yourself up and you lay awake and you stare at the ceiling and whatever. But completely off social media. I wouldn't read newspapers. I wouldn't watch sports news. And definitely didn't go on social media. So really had no idea how big the buzz was around calls I made or calls I missed.
So I played with teammates that would go publicly and say, I don't read newspapers, and they couldn't go into the John stall without a Toronto Sun in their lap. So what do you think about the officials today? Are they on social media? Are they watching? Are they listening? Are they getting feedback from their friends? Just no different than players?
Well, it's a different generation, and I know guys during the season. Some guys do. It's usually the younger guys. They're on social media, but I know the veterans tell them come playoff time that it's soul fucking. Don't do it to yourself. Stay off it. Now, whether they listen to the veteran guys, I know a guy like Wes McCauley. I'm not even. I think he probably still has a flip phone, so I know he's not on social media. But whether the young guys listen or not, I would hope they do because, unlike a player, when you score a hat trick, you're going to read good things about yourself. When you do a good game, you're still not going to have good things said about you. So there's really no upside to trying to mine your name on social media to see what they're saying about you.
So let's get your take on this postseason. Does it feel like there's more noise, the usual amount? How would you compare this postseason to a usual playoff run from a referee's perspective?
I can only really go from the last 3 years that I've been with ESPN because I've become a lot more social media savvy. I really don't know what went on in the past, but I look at it now and I say, wow, if all this was going on when I was working, boy, was I oblivious to it. And a good thing I was because it's out of control. And I don't even mean like from the media standpoint. I'm just talking from the fan standpoint. The conspiracy theories and the things they come up with are just, and they take on a life of their own. And it's just crazy. And then from the media standpoint, I'd say it's been pretty consistent the last 3 seasons from what I've seen.
Jack's just based on a controversial goal from Sam Bennett in Boston. General Manager Don Sweeney decided to make a calculated appearance where he said officials should have to address the media after controversial calls. To that, you say?
I say definitely no with a caveat. I mean, like you think about, and I saw his press conference. I thought he was well spoken, and I could see there was some frustration in his voice. You look at a press conference post game. When a team wins, everybody's happy, everybody's jovial. They usually bring the players out that had the most impact. A guy gets a hat trick, they're going to talk to him about his great game he played, right? When a team loses a game, it's seldom about the player that made the big mistake or fed the pizza out into his own slot that cost the winning goal. It's usually teammates come out and they talk about, what do you guys need to do to win the next game? Like, what do you guys need to do? What does a team need to do to win the next game? It's seldom, hey, how come you screwed the game up and how come you lost the game for your team? Mm-hmm. That doesn't really happen that often. They don't make players available. It's funny. I was reading on Twitter. I think it was Eric Engels who said that media requested Connor Hellebuck after the series loss and said the Jets wouldn't provide him. They wouldn't make him available. So they always say the players have to come out and talk, but I think the teams kind of protect players to a certain degree. There's nobody there to protect the referees. So I think you'd have a very confrontational atmosphere. I don't think it would be good for anybody, but my caveat is I think there could be a compromise if maybe we had a pool reporter who would go into the referee's locker room in a non-confrontational atmosphere and ask the questions in a much more, friendly environment. And then he could make those answers available to the other reporters.
That makes sense. Might as well get your take on some specific moments in the postseason. In the second half of the show here, we'll be doing a lot of Vancouver-Edmonton talk. I'm sure you saw Zadorov cross-check on McDavid, Soucy cross-check on McDavid, Hyman cross-check on Zadorov. What were your thoughts on what occurred and how the league handled it in terms of fines and suspensions?
You know what? That's above my pay grade. Do I think Soucy was trying to get him in the face? I don't. I think he was trying to retaliate from the slash on the leg, and it was just, the planets aligned. He was cross-checked by Zadorov from behind. He went down. He got him in the face. He got suspended for it. You've got to be responsible for your stick. And, let's face it, a one-game suspension in the playoffs is like a 2 or 3 regular season suspension. So I think they got it right.
Hey, Dave, when we talk about the regular season towards the playoffs, we understand that the stakes are high, and then a bad decision, a bad play could end your season. I get that. But as far as officiating from a regular season to a playoff game, is there anything that is noticeably different to an official that can cause him to feel, other than the pressure that's out there? Is it harder to officiate a playoff game than it is a regular season game outside of the pressure that you feel for, one mistake and it can cost you?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. I mean, you must look back on the emotions that you had, like your first playoff game. And I remember doing, like, my first several years in the league it was one-man system. And I was standby for several seasons, and I thought I was ready for my first playoff game. And I went out and actually did my first playoff game. And I mean, like, my hair was on fire. I could not believe the difference between a regular season game. A player's going 110% every single shift. And what I came to learn as I became a little more experienced in the league is that regular season players take lazy penalties, players take retaliatory penalties. Come playoffs, if the game's close, you're not going to see those type of penalties. You don't really have to worry so much about retaliatory penalties and lazy penalties. It's more about guys trying too hard and accidentally tripping a guy. It's, mistake type penalties, trying to gain an edge, just going. So you have to sort of sit back and breathe. You can't overreact. Yeah, and it's okay to realize that, if your arm goes up a second late, mm-hmm. Better that than overreact and call something that's not a penalty. Just take that extra second, breathe, and make sure you've actually seen what you thought you saw.
Yeah, in my limited refereeing experience, that was the hardest thing, was actually allowing yourself a moment to kind of process what happened. Sometimes the players go, it took him a couple seconds to put his hand up. It's like, well, good. It's okay to have a think about it. So, in terms of having to think about things, there are certain players, and I'm talking about Sam Bennett now, who develop a reputation for certain tricks, certain sort of cheap shots. Bennett now has landed a couple of sneaky right hooks on a hit. How often in a game are you aware of the tendencies of the guys on the ice and kind of looking out for, I know this Marchand, he likes to go low on guys, those sort of tendencies of dirtier players?
I think as referees, I think you do it all season long. I think the referees are really good at they get updates every day. This starting from like day one of the regular season. They get updates, lineups, who's playing every game. You get to the game an hour and a half, 2 hours before the game, and guys sit there in the room. They drink a coffee, they get their long johns and stuff, and they look down the lineup and they talk about players. The linesmen will do that. They'll talk about centermen. Which guys give you a hard time? Which guys try and cheat? So that they know that, and they give each other intel. The referees do the same thing. They go, okay, we've got these 4 or 5 guys that have certain tendencies. There's 4 or 5 guys in the other team that have tendencies. The last thing you want to do is prejudge. You don't want to go out and pick on a guy, but you want to know, listen, when this certain guy is on the ice, and it could be anybody in all 32 teams, when he's on the ice, make sure your antenna's up. Don't miss something. Mm-hmm. And I think guys are pretty good at doing that.
What about when it comes to embellishing and just – are there some officials that say, I don't care, I'm not giving you the benefit of the doubt?
I would hope not, because I think embellishment is the toughest call for a referee to make. You've got to get inside the guy's head and determine, did he fall naturally or did he fall unnaturally? And I mean, basically, when you call a tripping penalty or a slashing penalty, you're looking at it and saying, okay, you did it. I have no problem giving you a penalty. When you call an embellishment penalty, what you're saying to the guy is, you're trying to cheat the game here. You're not being honorable, and I'm making that determination. And I mean, that's some heavy stuff when you think about it. So I don't think guys want to go out there and call embellishment penalties. So I know we'll see them sometimes. They go, well, why didn't I call embellishment there? Because you've got to make sure. You've got to know in your gut that guy's trying to beat the game before you call an embellishment penalty on him. And even if he has a reputation, I think you always want to give the player benefit of the doubt until he crosses that line.
Dave, last question before I let you go. I just want to know why the refs always screw the Maple Leafs.
Sam wants to know.
That's on behalf of my Leafs Hour listeners, by the way.
Yes. What's going on here?
The funny thing is, that's the same question I get from every single fan base I do radio with.
I would have felt like a traitor if I didn't ask.
Not alone.
Dave, great stuff, man. Really appreciate your time. Have a great call tonight on your show.
Yeah, we got a doubleheader. Should be fun. Thanks, guys, for having me on.
Looking forward to it.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it.
Former National Hockey League official Dave Jackson. So,
have you ref before?
No. Nothing serious.
I did a handful.
You tried it?
Yeah.
And you liked it?
No, I'm here.
I did it.
Yeah?
Yeah. When I was a kid, did it for like house league and on weekends.
It's very hard.
It was like $25 a game when I was in high school. I was like, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
3 hours of work.
I could see parents following you guys to the parking lot.
Yeah.
It wasn't that serious. I ref lacrosse, which was way, way scarier and like definitely had moments like that. But reffing hockey, sucks. I don't know why anyone would ever do it.
I just remember like quickly making calls being like, that's not the right call. Like you can't put your arm out then and be like, actually I don't think it was now that I think about it.
That's the thing, the decisiveness you have to have where it's like calling it, sticking it.
Times you put your hand up, you're like,
And then if you put it back down, then you're dead.
Yeah, I thought Dave was really good.
Yeah, me too.
And just thinking about like throwing the officials to the wolves after a game and no one there to protect you.
Right.
He's right.
Like you can't just
be like,
you're going to put them out in front of the Boston Rabid media. They're like
throwing, like, what do you call that? Meat to the sharks there?
Chum?
Chum.
Yeah.
Hey, Chum.
Chum.
That's meat.
I just would like to update. So I know you guys don't like the World Championships.
This is good.
You guys don't like the World Championships.
No, we're fine with it.
That.
We're just saying it's at a stupid time of the year.
You make fun of me every year for telling how much I love this tournament.
It's just a stupid time of the year to have them.
So Canada was playing Team Austria today, and they went into the third period with a 6-1 lead. They blew that lead. 6-6 goes to overtime, and who shoots it in the net to win it?
John Tavares.
The captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, the captain of Team Canada. There you go.
That's leadership. Hey,
Instead of the golden goal, it's the tinfoil goal.
that's leadership.
Avoid a referendum goal.
Yeah.
So there you
Good
go.
for him.
There you
If
go.
you're going to be there, make a difference.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I don't think there's a more disgusting result in the history of Canadian hockey than blowing a 6-1 lead to
Binnington is
Austria.
our Olympic goalie?
Yeah,
Our
I guess so.
face-off for nation.
I thought it was maybe going to be
trophy.
Skinner. I thought it was going to be Skinner. He was looking hot for a while there, and he got replaced by Pickard tonight. I don't know, boys. Anyways.
You want to get a couple sound bites in before we go to break?
Well, we could save that for the national hour, but yeah. What do you want to do? Do you want to do Vancouver here, or do you want to just?
Well, you want to just Soucy suspension? No shock at one game, right? For cross-checking the best player in the world.
No shock. I know that Canuck fans are apoplectic at the idea that Hyman would come in and basically drill Zadorov in the mouth, and there's not a word about that. Soucy has been full-on suspended for this. Like, I think there's some real frustration at what's going on here.
Absolutely. I
Who do you
mean,
cross-check?
Not Nikita Zadorov, but Connor McDavid.
yeah. Do you want to hear
This is
Zadorov's?
why
No,
mentioned-
Hyman.
Oh,
Hyman-
Hyman.
yeah, Hyman came flying
cross-checked
in.
Zadorov.
Yeah.
Oh,
in the face.
Zadorov.
Which
Okay,
is why
yeah.
we have a great quote on this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to save it
Yeah,
for the
no.
national
No,
hour? Or you
I-
want to play it now?
Okay, no, we'll save it for the national hour.
Okay, we'll save it.
Because we got Vancouver.
Here's what Zadorov said. He said, I don't make enough money for the league.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
What can True Living do to get this man in Toronto? How much is he going to have to pay him to be a Toronto Maple Leaf? Zadorov.
And play 14,
I would think
28.
I would think he put in the last month $1 million a year in his pocket.
I think,
Zadorov?
Yeah, he went from.
I think you're light on that.
I think he went from. I think he went from
4-2.
4.25 to 5.25.
For how long?
Give him TJ Brody's deal. Give him 4 times 5.
He's pretty young though. I think it's going to take more than 4 on free. On
How old is he? 29.
Yeah, he's pretty young. So I don't.
Not good enough.
You can get 5 or 6 years. I think.
That's to me the most. 'Cause
He would still make me nervous.
of course, but if
Yeah.
there's one thing that I trust True Living to do,
Is overpay?
I mean that's for sure. But I think he's had a really good decor in Calgary.
Mhm.
He built a solid decor with a bunch of really good players. But I thought that was their strength, right? Like how many times we talked about their decor being one of the best in the league, and he was there and he built it. So
Tanev, Zadorov,
Yeah.
Hanifin, Anderson. I
yes.
love Rasmus Anderson.
they can.
Yeah.
I feel like I trust him to build a decor, and there's a lot of good free agents. Like there's Montour, there's Pesci, there's Chatfield, there's Zadorov.
Chatfield's.
There's
to me,
guys out there.
I would go get Chatfield before I would get Zadorov.
You think the Leafs are light on third pair guys?
Buddy, this guy's top 4 all day long.
Ooh, I like that.
Okay, all day long.
And
Okay.
shoots right
He
too.
is not. This guy can play. This guy can play 18, 20 minutes, and he's on the ice at the most critical times.
Bad
He
news
is the
for you.
biggest sleeper out there.
And Carolina
He's
is
better
just the
than
team to be
Pesci.
aware of that.
I'm telling you, he's better than Pesci.
What?
Yeah.
That's a monster.
If I'm the
Oh.
Leafs, I go get him before I get Brett Pesci. Wow. And he might be cheaper.
Sure hope so.
So yeah, that's quite a statement by you.
Watch him.
I know.
Just watch him.
I watched the Carolina Hurricanes look
Make
really
him happy,
good last
happy.
night.
Bring us Nick Hague and Jalen Chatfield.
Carolina's looking good after they got swept.
All right. We're still getting started here. After the break, Luke Gazdic will join us. Tee up tonight's games and Tripp Tracy as well. We'll talk Carolina and that blue line. Can they come back all the way? Halfway there now. That and more when we return to Real Kyper and Bourne. All right, let's get her going on our national hour of the Real Kyper and Bourne show. I'm Nick Kypreos. He's Justin Bourne. He is Sammy McKee. Derek Brandeo.
In the World Championship.
David Sisboom Bot. And now you say that.
Canada wins.
There you go. Off the Sisboom Bot.
They almost blew the biggest lead in World Championship history.
Who to Sweden, to
A really
Russia,
good team.
to USA?
Austria.
Oh.
Throw another shrimp on the Barbie. The Austrians.
We are live on Sportsnet, Sportsnet 650 in Vancouver and Sportsnet 960 in Calgary this hour. Real Kyper and Bourne brought to you by Bet365. So I'm trying to see the goals.
Yeah. What was your response to the question? Hey, Kyper, were they good goals? What'd you say?
Yeah, no.
That's generous.
No.
They're up 6-1. Game went to OT at 6-6.
Look like a lot of the goals that helped your team miss the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
Or get knocked out in the first round.
Yeah.
Weird how you have those players. Who was the pizza, the last one?
Gooley just bounces right off his stick. Marco Rossi picks it up and just somehow puts it through Binnington's pad to tie the game at 6-6.
All right.
So there you go.
John Tavares, the OT winner, 15 seconds in.
All right. In a few minutes, we're going to get Luke Gazdic to join us to talk Oilers Vancouver. Critical game tonight.
Yes.
All right. Derek Brandelio says he's good to go. Let's welcome him in. Luke, what's going on? How are you, pal?
What's up, guys?
So
How are we doing today?
You and you're an ex-Oiler. Kevin Bieksa is an ex-Vancouver. I mean, you guys are covered there, right? When you work together.
Yeah, I mean, Kev's gone for the week, to be honest.
He's gone.
So I'm solo.
Oh.
But it was fun leading up to that. He'll be back. It was fun kind of jousting off camera. And obviously he has a lot of pride for his alumni team and me as well. But he's taking a little break. So I got to steer the ship on the desk for the week.
So tons of storylines here. No bigger than Calvin Pickard starting tonight for the Edmonton Oilers. Let's get your thoughts on a controversial call, not a controversial call. Is this a game-changing moment here in the series?
I don't think it's a controversial call. I'll say that I'm a little surprised by it. I think my stance leading into this was he's your guy. Like I think you live and die and ride with your guy and your starter. I didn't think they would go to pick, but to be honest, it shows an extreme lack of confidence in Stu. And I don't think it's just this playoffs. I think they've taken, into consideration the past as well and the playoff run last year. But I think it's rubbing off on the whole group. I think the way Stu is played has kind of brought the intensity level and confidence level down for the entire group. So this might be the spark that they need, and hoping to see the real Oilers team, to be honest, because I don't think we've seen them in the first three games yet.
Well, that's, going into the series, that I was saying that I didn't think Vancouver had a chance. I really didn't, just having watched the Oilers since Chris Knoblauch took over, and this has not looked like them. So to, take a look at Vancouver's side and say, what are they doing that is making it such a challenge? I don't think the Oilers had a 5-on-5 goal last game. What has surprisingly been good from the Canucks so far?
So I know this is easy for me to say because they're up 2-1, but Vancouver's a team that I've covered the entire year. There's lots of late nights in studio where we're doing regional Vancouver games. I've seen them play all 82 games in the regular season. And so this, to me, is not surprising. Yeah. This is a Canucks team that has been counted out time and time again. And every time that we think they're going to fold or they start to walk backwards in their play, they don't. It's coaching, it's goaltending, and it's a general attitude around their team where it's kind of like us against the world. I really do think that starts with JT Miller. Him and Quinn Hughes bring a different type of dynamic in terms of their leadership. Quinn, a little more quiet, soft-spoken, leads by example. JT leads with his play. I think he's been a huge factor in it. If you watch the way they've played against the Oilers' top players, they've made it a lot harder than the Oilers have on the Canucks' top players. They haven't necessarily shadowed Connor, but they are aware every time he hops over the boards. There is a line or an individual that knows where he is at all times. You always hear that saying as a player, don't let him off the hook. Coaches always say, don't let him off the hook. And that is exactly what they've done to 97. I just think they've played a better two-way game. I thought the Oilers deserved better in game 3. Seelov's played outstanding, but they've had the better goaltending also, which has helped them.
In terms of Draisaitl and McDavid together, not together, mere fact that Knobloch has needed them the other night to play 30 minutes. Like, my first thought is, even if they get past Vancouver somehow and this thing most likely goes 7 games, what's going to be left of these two guys if they're going 30 minutes a night to go against in all probability, Dallas?
Yeah, he's running them pretty good right now. And to be honest, I think he's handcuffed by the fact that he's getting nothing out of their bottom 6. And when I say nothing, there's 1 assist through 7 players. Holloway, Fogle, Brown, Janmark, Ryan have combined for 1 assist in the series. I mean, it's not good enough, right? I think it's Chris thinking that he has to almost entirely depend his offense around the top 6. I think that's what's probably hurt them the most, is there's really only a couple guys giving them production. It's my general philosophy with this team that I think they should play separate. I think they should be able to drive their own lines. Leon in particular, he's more than willing and capable to do that. The line of Hyman, McDavid, and Nugent-Hopkins had some real success, especially during the 16-game heater they were on. So I really like that line together, and I'm glad Dylan Holloway's getting a shot in the top 6. I know I just said he has 0 points, but I really do think he can excel beside Leon. He's a guy that can drive the play.
Wasn't the depth supposed to be looked after at the trade deadline here? Like, wasn't that about getting more depth for you behind those guys? Like, what is going on?
Yeah, and I think the Henrique injuries really hurt them. I think he was a much bigger part to their forward core than people really realized until he got hurt. He played 11 minutes, just under 11 minutes in game 2. He's obviously hurting. That's a huge part of it. They traded for Sammy Carrick, and I would be fairly upset if I was Sammy Carrick or even Sam Gagner, who I think has deserved a shot in this bottom 6. If you're watching, the 6 or 7 guys that are getting dressed every night, I think one of those 2 guys has deserved a shot. But they definitely have to be better. It's a huge part of why they haven't had success.
Luke, players don't like to do it, but fans are all over the refereeing in this series. Do you feel like it's been lopsided one way or another? If you could also give us your take on the final incident of the game there where McDavid eats a cross-check, get your thoughts on that. But generally, the officiating in the series, has it had some influence to you?
I just think it's been inconsistent, and on both sides. There was one penalty that I referenced in between the first and the second last game, and it was Nurse's cross-check, where it reminded me of the Brady Shea one on Trocheck in overtime with Carolina, New York, where the push, right? And Nursey does that in a battle. It didn't really have too much effect on the play. He calls him for 2, and then there's the cross-check in front of the net on, I think it was Zadorov in front, which was really soft play to call, that different than the one at the end of the game. This one, just a couple minutes left in the game. Just inconsistent. I just think we're in round 2 now. There's a ton of calls that I'm watching that I'm like, really? Like, can we let these go? Can we let the boys play? The stuff at the end of the game, listen, I didn't like the whole sequence. Soucy, I don't think intends to cross-check him in the face. Zadorov, that's a little bit of a cheap one on the back. The McDavid slash, that's nothing. That's a love tap. You want to see a slash, go back to the Vegas-Edmonton series last year, Pietrangelo on Draisaitl. That's a slash. Connors was a little tap. I didn't think it warranted a cross-check to the face. My biggest thing on that whole thing is the response from the Oilers, or, should I say lack of response from the Oilers. I continually think, watching this Florida-Boston series, can you imagine if that was Barkov and that was the Florida Panthers? Right. There would be a full-on brawl. And I do expect probably a little retribution here in game 4. And whether that's not getting out hit 50-30 or at least sticking up for your number 1 center, I didn't like the way the whole situation played out for either side.
Vancouver doing a terrific job on the forecheck here. Give us your thoughts on that blue line in Edmonton and the thought of maybe 11-7, bringing in Broberg on the blue line. Will that make a difference? Will that help or just confuse things?
I am philosophically against 11-7, and I think it's because I played and I hated it when I played. It's just like the defensemen hate it too. The seventh defenseman who plays will end up playing no minutes. You have no chemistry with your line mates. Me as a fourth liner, you're constantly playing with a different third guy every shift you're out there. It's kind of miserable. I think this kind of leads back to the depth and getting no production out of them. He's almost handcuffed or forced to do this. Listen, Vancouver's been outstanding on the forecheck. That line of Dakota Joshua and Connor Garland and Elias Lindholm has been a nightmare for the Oilers D. I have grown to, dare I say, love Dakota Joshua as a hockey player. Yeah. This guy is a gamer. Hits, will scrap, has a really nice skill set, wins battles, makes plays. He has he's been a terror to the Oilers D. And it's just another situation where I think there's a number of guys on that blue line that have to be better. I will probably say that Matthias Ekholm is probably the only guy I can say that I've liked his game. I think the other five guys I think have a lot of room to go up.
You know, you look at the deadline, how it affected these teams. You mentioned Carrick is not drawing in the lineup, Henrique hurt and not having an impact. On the other side, Elias Lindholm has scored 6 goals in the regular season, 5 in playoffs so far. And then Zadorov has been maybe the biggest, the most impactful defender for the Canucks. You know, tell me about those 2 Vancouver Canucks and what you've seen out of them. I think the minutes that Lindholm has played so far have been better than he gave them in the regular season.
Yeah, and I know you said we're tuned into Vancouver radio right now. I was on Vancouver radio when they were pitching trading Lindholm a month after trading for him.
Right.
Like this was a real scenario where they were like, hey, is it a real thing where we could turn around and flip this guy to somebody else? Like they wanted nothing to do with him. And I mean, rightfully so. He wasn't playing a great brand of hockey, but he's come on really strong. I didn't know he had that physical side to his game. That's one thing that's really surprised me and Kev up there was every hit he lays. It's like, wow, like where did this come from kind of thing? And man, Zadorov's one of those guys you kind of love to hate. He's played the heel in the series and he's a big boy who doesn't mind carrying the pill up the ice. And he's been a treat to watch as well. Physical, stands up for his teammates, and he's really been a thorn in the side of the Oilers.
Chilovs now is starting to kind of turn the corner towards one of those historic runs that you seldom see in NHL history here. I know there's a long way to go here still, but just the mere fact of what he's been able to do, and do you see a midnight striking Cinderella scenario here anytime soon, or can this guy do what perhaps Patrick Waugh did once upon a time, or Cam Ward did once upon a time for Carolina? Run this thing.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, myself included, have kind of been waiting for this ball to drop and been waiting for the Oilers to finally solve him. I really haven't seen them be too flustered with a goaltender in particular like this in a while, but the kid's been outstanding. I'm not sure if, tonight is the night, but a lot of credit has had to been given to him. You can tell, like Quinn Hughes is in the post-game media availability talking about him and just how much he's rubbing off on the group, like how much confidence he's giving their team as a whole, as opposed to the Oilers on the other side. I think they're going to be able to solve him eventually. And I don't know if that's the right, case of words there, but it's to me, it's only a matter of time before the top guys of the Oilers are going to get a couple past him here.
Guys, I'm going to give you quick Leon Draisaitl stats. Since playoffs career since 2022, games with 0 points, 6. Games with 1 point, 9. Games with 2 point, 9. Games with 3 points, 12. Or 3+ points, 12. So this guy, all he does is pour pucks in the net in the playoffs. Unbelievable point. Like his production is wild. We're here in Toronto. You've been watching the Leafs too. And, Matthews and the Stars here haven't been able to replicate their regular seasons. What is it about Draisaitl that it's not just easy for him to replicate his regular season, but improve on it?
With Leon, the bigger the moment, the bigger the opportunity, the bigger the stage, the bigger he plays and the more juice he brings to it. It's a fun thing to watch. We get so frustrated during the regular season. Like how many times during this year with the body language and the mannerisms where you're like, what's this guy doing? You're just getting so frustrated with him. But it's like tough for him to play on a Tuesday night in Columbus. Like it's tough for him to get engaged. And when he does, like, it's see you later. I think he's just been waiting for this moment the entire year. And that's not to say he gave up on regular season hockey. I just think the bigger the stage, he shows up. And man, is he fun to watch when he gets into beast mode, when he has the one arm going and he has the puck on the backhand and he's protecting it and winning battles and gearing down on face-offs and shooting that one timer like he wants to put it through the net. He's easily one of the most fun players to watch in the league. And I'm hoping for one of those efforts tonight because he generally tends to bring it on home ice.
He is hurting, though. I mean, there's that, are you hurt or are you injured? Mm-hmm. I know this guy, it was unbelievable in years past with the ankle injury, but there's something going on there. He is not anywhere near, I know nobody's 100% this time of year, but I don't know if this guy's at 60 or 70%, but there's something going on with him. Do you sense that too?
I think you're right, but I think it's right around that time now, walking into game 4 in round 2 where everyone's got something. Something's bothering every single person, probably on both rosters. I do see it a bit with Leon, but he's as tough as they come, honestly. Playing on a broken foot or whatever it was in the Battle of Alberta. He'll bring it, but I think it's about that time in the playoffs where everyone's starting to feel it, and the Advil and the ice bags are all coming out about this time.
Guys, I did a little, looking into like ice tilt for AWS, and been looking into some of the numbers in the series, and it just looks like Edmonton has carried the play. Like third period, the entire game was in Vancouver's end. They couldn't put enough pucks over the line. I guess to me, it's just like the start is so key, is it not? Like once Vancouver gets up and they can kind of pack it in, it feels like that first shift last game, the Oilers were not prepared for what the Canucks brought. Does that put more pressure on their start tonight?
That's been a flaw of theirs all year. It just became a tendency of their game was slow starts, and they would get better and better. I mean, I acknowledge this one point. It might have even been on your show. At one point, they had the best third period goal differential in hockey. They go consistently up, but it drove me nuts to watch, and I'm sure it drove Oiler fans as well and hockey fans alike, where they just tiptoe into games a little bit. It's not like they're not ready for the puck drop, but they kind of let the game come to them as opposed to pushing the pace early. And you're right. That first shift with Joshua and Garland and Lindholm, it's like that it sets the tone of the game, right? And you don't want to play from behind it, but it became something of their game in the regular season, and it's a little disappointing to see it carry into the offseason, or into the playoffs, especially at home, especially with your home crowd behind you. The quicker you can get those fans on your side and cheering and loud in a hockey game, the better. And I think that is probably the number one thing on their list tonight, especially if Pick's playing, which he looks like he is let's have a good start. And for me, that was always an individual thing. It wasn't even a coach motivating you. It was getting yourself ready for your first shift. I was generally so nervous before the start of games, so I always just told myself, get the first shift out of the way and then go to work. And I think that's what everybody has to do down that lineup is worry about your first shift and winning your first shift, and then go from there,
Earlier in our hit, you mentioned the lack of confidence that they have in Skinner, but it also speaks well of the confidence that they have in Pickard. And good quality starts this season for him. I think 23 games in total, but a save percentage of .909. They really do believe that they can beat the the Vancouver Canucks tonight with Pickard. Like this isn't just a hoper here. They really believe that based on his performance this season, that he's capable of doing this tonight.
They do, and I think that's half the battle is belief. Here's a guy who stepped in multiple times during the season, and much like the way I talked about the Canucks earlier, where not much was expected, he blew away expectations, I'd say. Like as a backup goaltender, it was a guy that the players kind of just jumped on board with very early, and I think half the battle is believing in your guy. And that's not something you can say about every goaltender or every backup that you'd put in, where maybe the mindset of the team is, a little iffy, and this might be a tough one tonight, boys. Like, these guys actually believe they can win. And for my money, that's half the battle. And it looks like this team really loves this guy, and hopefully they give him a good effort in front of him, because he's going to bring it in net.
Well, you gave us a good effort here on this segment, as you always do. Thanks for doing this, Luke.
Yeah, anytime, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Enjoy the game tonight. Luke Gazdic, Sportsnet, Hockey Night in Canada.
So doesn't that create a problem when you start Pickard? I'm always I'm of one mind of this. If he goes in there and plays well for you tonight, so then you're going to start Pickard again. He's now your starting goalie.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're just done with Skinner.
Win and you're in.
Yeah.
That's where you're at in this series.
And if he's
For
bad and gives up a couple softies in the first period,
then you beg Skinner to find his game to keep the series alive.
Yeah.
I would have gone back to Skinner. I think
would've too.
when you pull a guy at 4-2 and you're still in the game, it's
pull.
you feel worse than you do if you're like got pulled at 5-1.
Yeah.
That one
He wasn't that bad. He wasn't that bad. I know everyone's going, he got to give you one more save. He does.
I don't think I think he. I watched him. That's not a guy that knows where his net is.
No.
He lost his net.
Yeah, okay.
And
Well, then, yeah.
I would have started Pickard tonight too.
Yeah.
I think it's the right call. You need to
he's
get
not-
3 before
and
they
he's
get
not-
2 wins.
Here's what I think is going to happen. I think he's going to be wonderful tonight.
You do.
I truly think Pickard's going to
Pickard?
be very good for them. It's a big opportunity. He's actually got a very comparable situation going into this game tonight as Aiden Hill did for Vegas when Aiden Hill had kind of a hot playoff run. First playoff start came later in their careers. They both had about 100 career games, around 45 wins. They're in very similar spots.
How old is he? 29?
32.
Oh, he's that old. 32, playing the biggest game of your life.
Yep. Unfortunately, you can't claim the, too young to realize how big the moment is. Like,
He knows.
He knows.
He knows, and you hope he's comfortable with it.
Yeah.
He's been.
You can't play young and dumb with that.
No,
one.
yeah,
That's she loves.
Yeah.
Young and dumb.
Yeah.
She loves, by the way, could not love this kid's look more. He's just greasy stash and the, floral shirts, and he's just having a great time.
You guys want to hear? I
No,
always
game
want
time. You got game time.
Well,
We got clips, though. We got
let's
clips.
put a couple clips. We can get the game time
All
later
right,
in the show.
I'm
Folks
good.
on
I'm good with
I
that.
I want to call him Chuck Knobloch so bad.
I know.
Every time I see it, I'm going to call him Chuck Knobloch. Chris Knobloch talked about the
Was
decision.
Chuck a pitcher?
He
What was
played. I think he was a third baseman for the
Third
New York
baseman?
Yankees.
Second
Maybe
baseman?
No,
Second
Minnesota
baseman.
Twins.
Minnesota Twins, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
But Yankees too.
Yeah, you ended up with
Yankees
the
too.
Yeah. I remember he got the yips really bad. Couldn't throw.
Right.
Yeah. So let's play the first clip from Knobloch on the decision to start Pickard.
Looks like Calvin Pickard will get the start tonight. Just give us a thought on what goes into that decision and what you expect from him.
Well, I'm expecting what I've seen from Calvin all season. Goaltender that's competed very hard, played very well for us, and piled up a lot of victories. And and there's been times, it's not a ideal situation. He hasn't been playing for a long time, but he's gone long stretches without playing. And, I think the team has a lot of confidence in Calvin when he has played, and he's going to be our guy.
He's gonna be our guy.
Guys, if Chris Knobloch were the coach of the Leafs, our show would have died after one season. We could not have had a coach's clip segment. It would not have lived.
Boy, that sounds like an insurance seminar.
Oh, my God.
Right?
The reason I cut it is because he says he's our guy.
He's our guy.
To me, that's a statement.
Yeah.
He's our guy.
Yeah.
He's
He's a guy.
He's a career backup guy.
He
who's-
has to be our guy.
Yeah.
We have no choice.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to the good stuff.
Okay.
Zadorov. Zadorov today was asked about the Soucy suspension, and he gave it an excellent quote. So let's play the Zadorov clip and go from there.
Yeah, it is a big part of our team. Obviously, it's a big loss for us. My thought on that, I've been thinking for a couple days. Unfortunately, that's the word we're limited in. Sometimes, social media and the public views can create some hard decisions for specific people, and they might make questionable decisions at the end of the day. that's how I look at it. At the end of the day, they have to protect their investment. So that's my understanding in this situation for sure.
Zadorov could have a show.
He said that social media got Soucy suspended because Connor's the highest investment the league has.
He's right.
He did say that.
He's right. That's why he was suspended, because it was McDavid. He's right.
That's
so
fine.
if that's
I disagree.
Evander Kane or that,
Yeah, I don't think it's a suspension. I really don't. That's how I truly believe. And Carson Soucy's been playing against McDavid. He's a super important guy for them.
The damage is way worse if you don't suspend him on that play against
because everyone
McDavid.
hunts Soucy and it becomes a sideshow.
Well, just you're going to side with Connor McDavid. That's all. That's my whole point. It's people would be up in arms right now if this didn't lead to a suspension off of McDavid.
You know what? It becomes a much bigger story league-wide.
It would have been much more of
what do we do?
Yes.
As a league, what are we doing if we're allowing Connor McDavid to wear that one?
This one's so much easier on the league. Just give him a game.
Then give a game to Zach Hyman.
And my boy,
doesn't work that way.
My Canucks fans, friends,
shout
out to my buddy Neil Corbett, talking about how they're just a different team without Soucy. This is a significantly bigger loss than people think it is.
Him and Myers have been playing against McDavid the whole series,
and he's long and he's
he's
physical,
good.
and he just puts everyone in the right slot.
He's fifth
on the decor.
Yeah, but he's fifth in ice time out of the 6, right?
Well, it doesn't mean he's unimportant, Kevin.
I'm not saying that is.
Yeah.
I'm saying that he's still fifth on the depth chart of ice time. So that gives you some idea of how good that D is.
Yeah. Oh,
right?
I see. Okay. Yeah.
So
that he's a fifth guy says a lot about the decor.
Right?
Yeah.
That tells you that how far that D's come along.
Yeah.
In a short period of time that they revamped it with Soucy and
Cole, although Cole keeps shooting his own
off.
Cole's going to quit hockey.
I know he's having a tough go here.
Every goal, like that one goes in off of him, and he's not even in the way.
I know.
It's just off his jersey.
Winner. But hey, I interrupted something where you were saying that's not how it works, about Hyman getting suspended on Zadorov.
I'm just, basically, that's not the way it works.
So
right?
to me, I've only seen one
got two
angle
choices,
of that
suspension
play.
and no suspension. The one that takes the less heat off of us is to suspend him one game. That's all.
But you don't even give Hyman a fine? Nothing?
It was a scrum. It was like lots of close bodies in. I'm not sure how much contact there was. It's against who? Zadorov?
Yeah.
Big deal.
But we know that doesn't.
Big deal.
Big
It shouldn't
deal.
matter who it is.
Yes,
It does matter
I am
who
aware
it
that
is.
it does, but it
It
shouldn't.
does.
I'm aware, but it shouldn't.
Hey, I'm sorry. This is not everybody's equal here. It's not.
But
it's about the noise.
To me, the Hyman cross-check, I need another angle because Zadorov is 20'12", and
maybe TNT can come out with an angle 6 days later,
maybe
where the league didn't have it somehow.
I would like them to, but he comes in, and if it looks like it looks in the one overhead, it's a pretty good shot to the mouth. And
Just let's move on.
that's what the league's doing. It's this is why Canucks fans are mad. It's because the plan
is the way
is
it
this.
works. I'm just telling you the way it works.
Yeah,
I'm not telling you it's right or wrong.
Right.
I'm telling you the way it works.
I'm not even a Canucks fan.
You want me on that wall.
I'm
You
livid.
need me on that wall.
There's always going to be two sides, one screaming, one not, or one screaming the other way. And it's like, you're not going to please everybody. So pick the one that can kind of, you feel like you're safest.
Yeah.
The noise would have been 10 times louder.
So the league did not try to do justice. They tried to keep it quiet.
Control the chaos or the noise.
Yep.
And that's what this decision was.
Can't wait for this game.
What a series.
What a hockey game we got tonight, boys.
Are we
go to
doing
break.
predictions yet? Or are we?
Let's go to break. And then we'll
Go to break, and then we'll do game time out of it. Still plenty more to hear from Rick Tocchet as well. And Bednar, Nikushkin. How that one shocked everybody during the
Plus
Stanley
Tripp
Cup
Tracy and the
playoffs.
Carolina Hurricanes.
Tripp Tracy as well will give us a Carolina update and the belief that they can come back all the way and beat the New York Rangers. Plenty more still on Real Kyper and Bourne. Don't you dare go away. Vancouver will go tonight without Carson Soucy. Let's go to Rick Tocchet on how he plans to handle that. Clip 1.
Rick, you used the Soucy-Myers pairing a lot against Nashville's top line and McDavid. With Soucy out, will you plan on putting Zadorov with him, or do you kind of go more by committee?
A little bit of committee. I mean, we've done that this year where we've mixed some pairs for a reason, for times like this, where guys can play with different guys. You might have to, we've put Huggy with Hughes with some other guys sometimes. So I think it's a committee thing. Juleson and Cole's have been good together. We've had some good pairs together, so they're used to it.
Huggy's an elite nickname.
It is. It is elite. I'm a huge fan.
Huggy Bear. Remember him?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Yeah, we remember. You don't remember that?
Huggy Bear?
Yeah.
No. Isn't it from like
Starsky and Hutch?
Oh no, I didn't know that. No.
That's what I'm saying. Puppy.
Most assists per game in playoffs all time among NHL defensemen. Number 1, Bobby Orr, 0.89. Number 2, Quinn Hughes, 0.85. Just ahead of Cale Makar, Evan Bouchard, and Adam Fox. Point being, guys, pretty effective player here for the Vancouver Canucks.
Very.
He's been really good. So the Rangers can't put away the Carolina Hurricanes. 3-2 now after the Canes put together an unbelievable third period. How about the Jordan Staal stick handle?
Rangy.
How long has he been in the league?
I don't know, 18 years? I made that up, but it feels like forever.
A long time. Best goal I've ever seen him score.
And the length of the single deke from where he took it to where he put that in had to be 25 feet.
His first year was 06-07.
He's almost been in the league
nailed that.
20 years.
And he scored.
He
scored.
He
almost
scored
30
some,
in his,
he scored
in his
some
first
big
career.
goals in the past.
Yeah.
But I don't remember an individual effort when the team needed it the most like that last night.
No, and then Evgeny Kuznetsov comes in, scores, and does the bird, which Sammy loves.
I don't love it. I love the fact
Intensely
that he
like it.
has a signature, and it's a great Sally for him.
Yeah.
Not the biggest Kuznetsov fan, but yeah, I like that he has a signature.
Is there anyone?
What's your signature? You got one?
Panarin
What, celebration?
Yeah.
Panarin
No, I don't
does the
score,
Rockettes
so I don't get to do one.
Nothing, no signature.
All right, we got Tripp.
All right, let's welcome him in. We called him earlier on the show. Tripp Tracy, Carolina's still alive. He's still alive. That's
Yeah,
all
we're
good
all
here.
humming.
We're all good. Tripp, how are you, pal?
Hey, Kyper, how are you? How
We're-
are you, Justin? Great to be with you guys.
Yeah. Yeah. So what is the feeling now coming back home in a series that everybody had Carolina written off and questions on their head coach Brindamore staying, going, signing a contract? All of a sudden, a lot of nervous Ranger fans out there.
You know, Kyper, I thought going into Game 4, because other than special teams, I really liked the way that Carolina was playing. Shesterkin has been great the entire series. That once they won Game 4, I really, we'll see how it plays out, but I really felt like if they could win Game 5 last night, that they have an outstanding chance to win the series, because you being a former Ranger and a Stanley Cup winner, that, if you could just flip the pressure, especially in the New York market, I think it's perfect that, this is the one time in the series that there are 2 full days between games. I don't think the momentum plays a part. I think every game in the Stanley Cup playoffs is a standalone. But to win that game and to have to do in the third period last night, I think that, there's pressure now. And the Hurricanes certainly have a great feeling, and the way that they're playing that you hope extends into Game 6. We'll see how it shakes out, but I really felt like Game 5 would determine this series. Ultimately, let's see if that proves to be true or not.
So the Canes tend to control the play against pretty much everyone they play. They're in the offensive zone for most of the hockey game, and they just kind of need their goalies to be good, not great. Tell us about the crease right now for Carolina and the trust they have right now in Freddie Anderson.
It's a great question because, I've had the privilege of being here for 25 years, Justin, and, going back as a reference point to when Carolina won the Stanley Cup in 2006, when they went to Cam Ward down 2-0 going to Montreal in the first round. I had total conviction in going from Gerber to Ward. Gerber had been great in the regular season. And then when they went to Martin Gerber, sort of underrated in that Stanley Cup run, down 2-1 in the conference final in Game 4 in Buffalo, I had total conviction. I remember walking back from practice on the off day with Greg Stephan. He let me know that Pierre Laviolette was going to go to Gerber. You know, coming out of Game 4 on Saturday night, it was more of an internal struggle for me.
Mm-hmm.
Do you go to Anderson, you know, after the win? Do you go to Kochetkov, who I have a ton of confidence in? And for Freddie going into last night where he had to be, because Carolina played so well in every department other than, you know, their power play, they gave up a shorthanded goal. The three areas that I was looking, and I'm still looking for growth from Freddie here going into Game 6 is his lateral movement, because I think the Rangers have really tried to target getting him moving from side to side with their skill. His rebound control, you guys know from his time in Toronto, when he's really feeling good about himself, he has the ability to absorb pucks and have swagger to his game. And then finally, the puck handling dimension, because that's one area that Kochetkov definitely, I would say, has an edge. And I thought Freddie, in the first period, there's still steps to be taken, but I thought he checked some boxes of progression with those three things. So I saw that in a game where the goaltender had to be nothing more than solid as progressive steps that you hope will get even more progressive moving into Game 6.
We're talking to Tripp Tracy, who does a terrific job covering the Carolina Hurricanes, also has a podcast, Digging In with Tripp. So as I'm watching the Rangers in the third period, you got Shesterkin in net. It's a 1-0 lead. You're just waiting for maybe something, a moment. And I'm watching Jordan Staal, who's been around for a very long time, give Carolina a moment on an individual effort. And I was telling the guys earlier, Tripp, that, you know, we've seen Jordan score some goals, but like this one was just a great individual effort against a pretty good defenseman in Braden Schneider, and then going in there and finishing on Shesterkin. I can't imagine the lift that it would have given that bench. And then, lo and behold, 3 minutes later, they're up 2-1 with the Birdman. I mean, where do you see that goal by Jordan Staal on what it could mean moving forward?
You know, Kyper, that's the tail end of your question, and a great statement, I think, is TBD in terms of what it could mean. But to give it some context, you know, I sojourned, because it's not an easy place to get to all 4 Staal weddings in Thunder Bay. All the family, and fortunately, they're 4 wonderful guys of great faith that I know there isn't going to be a divorce, and there's not going to be another one I got to get up there to. And you know, as well as I know Eric, in, you know, in order of their age, Eric, Mark, Jordan, and Jared, they all have some subtle differences to their personality. And Jordan is hard on himself. And, you know, because of that, I think it's at times more difficult for him to trick his mind into creating offense with all the other things that he's done in the series, because he's been a beast. And so when I think about that moment that you mentioned, Kyper, here's a guy that has had probably more 5-on-5 chances than any Hurricanes player going into the third period with a season on the line of Game 5. And he makes that move on Schneider. But knowing Jordan the way that I do, I thought he'd just funnel that puck towards the net, and there would have been nothing there on Igor Shesterkin, who was in the zone. And he makes that move using all of his condor reach to go forehand, backhand. I couldn't help but wonder on the radio broadcast if he went to school on Gensel, who had a similar breakaway at the end of the first period, and recognized that forehand, backhand was there. But you know what, boys, that's digging in mentally for me, not to just make what would have been a can of corn shot offering, and instead making that move that changed absolutely everything. What does it do from this point forward? Because I've seen Jordan go on some mini offensive runs when he starts to have confidence in his offensive traits. Let's see what it does for him.
Yeah. So one of the identifying characteristics of the Carolina Hurricanes rests behind the bench in Rod Brind'Amour. He is the Carolina Hurricanes to many of us. What are your thoughts on, during playoffs, having sort of a contract, a public contract, I don't want to say dispute, but negotiations? Here in this market, everyone's talking about what could we pay to get Rod Brind'Amour. What are your thoughts on Rod and his contract situation with Carolina?
What I would say, because I remember years ago, when I first got going as a broadcaster, and Glenn Wesley, who I loved as a Hurricane to the ends of the earth, he used to come in before practice, and I'd have a coffee in my hand, and John Forsley and I would be there, and he'd say, "You got any scoops, guys? Scoops?" And I finally said to Glenn, Wes, I'd call him off the air, love him to the ends of the earth. I'd say, "Wes, my job is as the color analyst. If I was a scoop guy, I'd work at Baskin-Robbins and choosing from 31 flavors." And so I'm not, trying to take the easy way out here, but my singular focus since the puck was dropped in Madison Square Garden, 9 days ago in Game 1, has been totally consuming as the color analyst of the team. How do the Hurricanes win this series? That's been my 24/7 mental focus. And what I see in a coach who I happen to have a very close personal relationship with is a coach whose faith in his team has stayed, it's not even surprising, but as always, profoundly strong. There was some noteworthy external commentary when they went down 3-0, ideologically about the way that he's approaching the game, shot volume, et cetera, the necessary growth needed in special teams. But I see a coach in this series that his faith in his group, and as a microcosm, his daily, weekly, monthly, yearly faith in the importance of Jordan Staal, whether he's scoring or not, just has not deviated in the slightest amount. So within the series, I'm just trying to figure out how Carolina wins this series. If down the road, if you were to ask me that question, I probably would give you a more opinionated thought. I do think that at the end of the day, Rod's DNA and his bloodstream is of the Carolina Red.
So much. Just one more. Can you quickly tell Justin Bourne how good Jalen Chatfield is?
Oh, there's something to be said for guys that, because there's limited opportunity when you're not projected as a can't-miss prospect, when it oftentimes takes a second organization where you've got to earn it. And he comes from the Vancouver organization, and you get lesser opportunities than a guy that you've made significant investment in. You've got to be mentally, physically prepared, invested with all the controllables to take advantage of oftentimes your one opportunity. And Jalen Chatfield has done that from the get-go. He's a great skater. He hasn't needed to so much in this playoff run, but he can play either side. Most defensemen say they can do it, but not many can. Mm-hmm. And Slavin was hurt last year, and he had to play his offside with Brent Burns for, I think, an entire month of January. His play didn't fall off. He could handle the excess minutes. And I think that I would say, gentlemen, because I think this is the strongest compliment that you can get. You guys are in Toronto. When Brent Burns first got here, he goes to the rink so early. We were taking an Uber early to the game in Calgary. And Brent Burns, I wish you guys were in that Uber, as Brent was talking in supreme complimentary fashion about Jalen Chatfield's upside and the fact that he was such a willing sponge to try to learn from Brent Burns of how he can get better. And he's become an extremely important piece of their lineup. And since Brett Pesce went down, which we all know is a massive loss, Chatfield, Orlov, I thought D'Angelo, after a bit of a rough game in Game 4, was solid last night. But Chatfield and Orlov deserve just a gigantic amount of credit with the way that they've elevated when you have such a significant loss in the blue line.
Tripp, great stuff, man. Enjoy Game 6. It's going to be electric in Carolina.
Thank you, Justin. Kipper, by the way, I just talked to, you being a former Whaler, I just talked to Chuck Hayden, the Hall of Famer, before I came on, and he said, say hello to that great former Whaler, and he misses going to your restaurant in Markham.
Yeah, well, Chuck's a great guy. Called a few of my goals in Hartford.
Cool.
Send him my best. Thanks for doing this, Tripp.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Tripp.
Great stuff from Tripp Tracy.
Yeah, just like Tripp signed a free agent contract with the Hartford Whalers in '96. I don't know if you knew that. He had some Whalers ties as well as a goalie.
I did not know that.
Oh, I'm here to help.
I'm way before me.
All right.
Way after me, sorry.
It's game time. Presented by Bet365. Visit the app, latest odds, to find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 19 plus. Ontario only. Please play responsibly. Now, we're getting into the time of year where the odds for the favorite to win the Stanley Cup are a little bit shorter here. And the two favorites are the Dallas Stars and the Florida Panthers. The Dallas Stars are plus 225 to win the Cup. Kipper, I believe, was that your Stanley Cup final that you may have predicted? So the books are liking what you have. The Edmonton Oilers are next. This is the crazy part to me. The Edmonton Oilers are down 2-1 in a series to the Vancouver Canucks where they've looked largely bad. The Vancouver Canucks are 12-1, and the Edmonton Oilers are plus 450. And they're down 2-1 in a series.
Yeah.
I thought that's wild.
Yeah.
So they still have trust that, She Loves is going to fall apart here, that the Oilers are going to get going. But if I'm
No
if
way.
I'm Rick Tocchet, I'm just like, you guys got to go to Bet365. You got to look at the odds who's going to win the Cup and look at that, because that's crazy to me.
Yeah.
Like,
And place your bet. Is that what you're saying?
No, I don't think you should do that. But I'm just saying, look, just look at it and say, hey, look.
Keep them away from that stuff.
They look like they have no belief in you.
Right.
Everyone has no belief in you. So I just think that's interesting anyway. So obviously 2 games on the ice tonight. Florida, massive favorites, minus 220. They think that series ends there. And the Edmonton Oilers as well, minus 205. The Vancouver Canucks plus 170 in Edmonton tonight. So Bet365 disrespecting the Vancouver Canucks, my Vancouver Canucks, pandering.
Connor driven.
But they think that they really do think that the Oilers are going to have a big statement tonight. But I mean,
Connor, after getting no points, just gets a million
twice
points.
in the series.
Yeah.
So you can.
He needs 3 or 4 tonight.
He probably will.
You could do a lot worse than the Vancouver Canucks, who are
yeah.
red hot, plus 170 against a guy making his first career playoff start. You could do a lot worse than that. So that was Game Time, presented by Bet365. Visit the app's latest odds and find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 19 plus. Ontario only. Please play responsibly.
In 12 games after recording 0 points this season, McDavid has 26 points.
Okay, guys, listen, we got to get to one of the biggest stories in the NHL, and that's Nichushkin now no longer a member of the Colorado Avalanche, is
9
now
goals in
stage
playoffs.
3 from the NHLPA. And, Bednar was asked about it, basically said, yes, it's disappointing, but then there's the human element of getting his life in order. Justin, something that's near and dear to your heart is the challenges that he's had. You've gone through it personally here. What are your thoughts when you first heard about Nichushkin now not being a part of the team and going into a stage 3 situation?
I just, I have a lot of sympathy, for the guy and what he's going through. I've seen some people say some things like the team is mad at him or whatever, and that's fine. The players and the team are allowed to be disappointed that he's not available, but he's obviously in the grips of something that he's having a tough fight against. I feel for him. I wish him the best. It's obviously the hockey is secondary at this point. Don't necessarily agree with some of the ways it's handled through the league, but I understand that, I'll just leave it at I'm rooting for the guy.
The story's not going to go away. No. I want to get in tomorrow a little deeper on how things are handled and what you were just speaking of, because I think it's really important that we take a deeper dive here on how the NHL or the NHLPA handle situations like this.
Appreciate that. Let's do it tomorrow.
All right. Our thanks to all our guests. Enjoy the games tonight. We're back tomorrow once again on Real Kyper and Bourne. Have a great night, everybody.